in the world that human beings live, and some barely exist in the culture where they live. And as you look around yourself and you look and see the natural geographical area and situation, there's a lot of things could be a lot better if people were only free from a traditional pattern of life. I will say this tonight. Salvation will work in any environment if it's understood right. But when you try to put culture above salvation and culture above how to serve the Lord, you are a slave to something that you're totally ignorant of what you really need. Now, when I said this morning something about the South American countries, I don't say that to be derogatory toward any Spanish background racial person, please. Not at all. If I thought like that, I would never step my foot on one of these soils. But this letter that some of you have been privileged to read from those brothers down there in Argentina, I hear a call for help. Has nothing to do with their culture at all. They're hungry for truth. And they feel that there's truth somewhere in the world. And they want that truth. Because that truth is what's going to give them not social security, but spiritual security. Something we all need, no matter what race we come from. It is a fact. America, as it once was, is the only nation on God's green earth that you could immigrate to and come to expect to find the truth, no matter whether you was black, white, yellow, or what. And you could find salvation with just a simple, no matter whether you was rich or poor or what. Some people, you can't talk about anything without it begins to get next to the flesh. When I look back, brothers and sisters, when the Union Pacific Railway was built, the population of America wasn't then what it is now. The World War, the Civil War has closed. It's united from coast to coast. But there's a vast expanse of wilderness across the western plains and the mountains that needed to be connected, and the only way to do it is by railroad. The Orients supplied thousands of Oriental laborers. But from the regions of Ireland came an untold number of Catholic laborers, poor. Nobody said anything about the religion then. They wanted laborers. And brothers and sisters, from the two ends of that Union Pacific, they finally, I believe, they drove a golden spike as commendatory of the labors and the ordeals that went in. Out of that era, there was some of the Irish decided to stay, and there was a lot of the Orientals decided to stay. Remember, America in the days gone by was made up of many immigrants. I've been all over the West, but I always said I would like to go see Death Valley. We hear a lot about what Death Valley was in that time. But I'd read a vague story when I was young that some of the 49er gold rush people got lost in there, and some of them died. So this time when we was out there, we just went on across the Mojave Desert and dropped off into Death Valley, 200 feet below sea level. It's a fact. In the prehistoric times, it was a lake. You might say it was an inland body of water. Dinosaurs roam there because they've got some of the skeletons and the fossils of that era. And sad to say that we've got an element of so-called Christian people in America that are as ignorant. When you start talking about that, oh, that's a flood. Traditional Christianity absolutely is just as ignorant as an unbeliever. And the hour is going to be when you will not see God show respect to person to either one. If you don't know God from a salvational standpoint, it don't matter what your religious background may be, it ain't going to register with God at all. In there's a museum now that commemorates all those days gone by. And the story goes back to 1849. This one particular wagon train that was leaving out of St. Joseph, Missouri. They was late in the season reaching the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. They began to be afraid that if they got on into the mountains to cross over, that the winter would overtake them and they would get snowbound. So they decided to skirt the mountains and skirt around the end of the mountain range and go across the desert on the rest of the way. But it was unbeknownst then, brothers and sisters, that there was a place called Death Valley. Only a few Indians knew that. So as they skirted around the ends of the mountain regions, they dropped off into this valley not knowing what they was going into. And suddenly they find themselves in this valley. They had a piece of sprig of grass, there's nothing growing. Hardly any water. After a while, they begin to suffer from malnutrition. They're low on their food supplies. Some of their animals, they run out of food supplies, and there sure ain't nothing out there to graze on. They begin to lose their laboring animals. Finally, brothers and sisters, one by one, many of them began to die. They was buried, and probably, brothers and sisters, today, they're still there now in an unmarked grave. And as things went on, finally there was a few of them begin to make their way out of there. They went in there as a wagon train, but they came out of there individuals, just barely existing. Hardly any animals. In the museum there's one bronze statue of an ox. It gives its name. This man and his wife, and there was three little children. That's all he had left of what his part of the wagon train was this ox. He's leading this ox with his wife sitting behind, a little child sitting right on in front of her. On the shoulders of this ox was two big pack sacks like they use on pack horses. And there was a little child stuck in each one of them. And he led his family. That was what his family consisted of. But the point of it is, when you begin to look at the roster in the museum, what the name of the peoples were, most were immigrants. They immigrated here from Europe. Some were Irish, German, Dutch, Russian. That was America then. Gold, they went crazy for it. But they thought if they could find a spot of gold somewhere, they had found heaven. There's a lot of stories could be told about that. But my point is this, brothers and sisters, most of those people came here ready to, we will say, face the disasters, because it was a challenge. It was a new hope, because the old world was all exhausted. There was no resources to return to in the old world. And if their economy wasn't worth anything, there was no future. I read how the Irish came over here, how they'd had periods of drought and such. And a lot of the Irish people almost starved to death in their own country, and that's why a lot of them came here. And when I look back on the history of that hour, brothers and sisters, I say all of those immigrants had a backbone in them. They weren't looking for a handout. When I read the history of the Jew, that covers from about 1850 to 1913, just shortly before World War I broke out. I forget how many 100,000 Jews from Middle Eastern Europe came here. Some died from sickness at sea. When they reached Ellis Island, they was met by a team of doctors and nurses that had them to strip down stark naked, because they wanted to see if they weren't bringing some kind of disease in. But there was no welfare check. There was no baskets of food handout. Few of those Jewish people had relatives living in New York City, and sometimes they're met by these relatives with a little bit of help. But most of those Jews came to a country they had never seen. They had read about it, but they too helped to make up a nation that became known the world over. This nation has done more to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ than all the rest of the world put together in a shorter span of time. There was a day the American man was looked upon as though he was almost like a god. In World War II, in the islands of the Pacific, when American soldiers stepped ashore, the natives somehow or other had a respect for that American soldier. He was their liberator. They treated him as such. When we went into the Philippines, it wasn't long till the village people would begin to come around our camp, and they wanted to take and wash our dirty clothes. They set no price. They wanted to wash our clothes free of charge. And many times, brother and sister, a GI would just up and give money to them. They would give it back, and the GI would just throw it at them. But today, America no longer has that image. They want your money, but you're not their liberator. In fact, behind your backs, they'll even talk about you. Now, I use this tonight as a basis. I'm not a racist. I despise it. And these characters that want to belong to the Ku Klux Klan, they ought to be drenched with what? A dose of salts. Why, Brother Jackson? Because they're trying to use a cloak of something or other that stood altogether different for something now than 100 years ago. Today they're against the black and against the Jew. 100 years ago, brothers and sisters, what they call the white cappers or the vigilantes, that wasn't usually the picture. Usually the picture was, brothers and sisters, the law wouldn't do nothing, and you got a criminal, a crook in town that owns everything. He gets by with cheating, robbing, having people killed. And then when the law is no longer a just means to bring things to an end, it forces the people form themselves into a body called white cappers or vigilantes. Now, up to the point, I don't believe in taking the law into your own hands. But I'll say this in the face of any politician. Keep on going like you're going. You may be sowing the seeds of your own harvest. Because don't forget, the man that we read about in the Bible called King David, he was forced to go to the mountain regions and join the underworld characters. Am I right or wrong? And then when things in the governmental society got so rotten, then the people began to cry for David to come. So brothers and sisters, up to a point, it's right to listen to the law and the just. But there comes a time when so-called law isn't just at all. It's a crooked means to stifle, to cheat, mislead, to use fear tactics, because you got a system that wants to rule the majority through fear. And that's why King David was known to be a man after God's own heart. He did some things, brothers and sisters, in his hour that helped stabilize the beginning of a new era in the history of Israel. So I'll say no more along that line. Now, but it's a fact. There has been a trend in the last 40 or 50 years. It's been said from high places. If America is to achieve what we want it to be in the 21st century, we've got to destroy the effect, the voice of the so-called Christian people. Which means this: from now on, we will screen the immigrants We will not let the white man come in that comes from, we will say, a devoted pattern of Christian conduct. We'll let them come in. They don't care whether they're Catholics, Hindus, Buddhists, just so they do not have a staunch, faithful Christian background. In the last 30-some years, this country has literally been run over by the minor immigrants. And I'm sorry that it makes it look like this is racial. Let me take it to the point. The time has come. You're either a Christian or you're not. God has given every race somewhere in time an opportunity to know the truth. But they either put culture or their pagan religions above everything. They've been hoodwinked, misled, deceived, thinking that there's nothing to it. And America is the last land-based island of hope that there's ever been in this Western Hemisphere. That anybody, no matter what his race was, could come, hoping somehow or other to do himself a little bit better material-wise. And because of that, the government, which will not say the truth, but they've manipulated a lot of things behind the doors by allowing certain types to come in. They not only want to unchristianize America, but they want to take the influence that the Christians have had up to a certain point. I can remember, brothers and sisters, when the average person in the countryside of America that didn't go to church, we could say, well, they were an unbeliever. But in principle, they lived a lifestyle much better than a lot of the so-called churchgoers today. Because America was founded at a time when the Reformation was going on, and the immigrants from Europe fled knowing the old countries would never tolerate and allow a deep, devoted Christian life to rule those societies. So they come to a land that's new. Sure, they faced obscurities, uncertainties, and the future was questionable. But at least to them, it was a hope. They was ready to come here, live in log cabins with dirt floors, and never cry about it, because it gave them a new hope. And at least we had politicians then that had a backbone and had some respect for decency and the principles of that which is right. And yet we had a lot of adventure seekers coming from Europe over here. Some of them wound up with their heads cut off by Indians. Some of them came here just to live on the resources. They could find gold, silver, or if they could live on the hides that they killed, shipped them back to Europe. On and on the story can go. But America grew. And America grew, brothers and sisters, to the point it became a haven, a land of adventure, but to many, a place where they can find God in principle of truth. All around her, the Catholics moved in. I'm not talking about racial. I'm talking about religion that stupefies people. South America, in the 400 and some years that it's in existence, it's had more civil wars than you could shake a stick at. The dictators that have ruled the masses, and they all cater to the church, to their material riches. And the Church of Catholicism always catered to the rich. That's how they lived in the feudal system, in the old countries. Yeah, the rich families was always devoted to the church. That's why I said here a few weeks back, you could go into a lot of them big cathedrals. There's where the kings, the queens, the prince and the princesses are all buried. The lords, whatever you want to call them, they're buried there with plaques on the walls over the cobblestones that hold them under the ground, because they thought that was their haven. That was Catholicism. So South America the same way. But when it comes, brothers and sisters, to learning how to use the natural resources for to better their way of life, and I said this morning, In a lot of the other parts of the world, they have the ability to raise carrots and potatoes as well as us. They have the ability to raise lettuce. In 1974, in the month of January, we was in Ghana, Africa. We rented a bus. It was a small bus. We was going down the road one day. We was going to a certain little town. We had to stop at a checkpoint. And as we stopped there, why, the officer, he asked the driver, could this particular man that was standing there by him catch a ride? And the man driving the bus says, well, he says, I'm only just rented out to these gentlemen, so you'll have to talk to one of these men. So the officer stuck his head in the door, said, which one of you men is in charge of this bus? And I said, well, I guess I am. Says, can this man ride a short distance? I said, I suppose so. So when he got on, he was one of these, he was an American boy. He studied this schooling under this, what they call that, peace movement. So he got on and he come back and sat in the seats with us. And he began to talk. I said, how much longer do you have over here? He said, just a little over a year. He says, I've been over here almost 2 years now. I said, how's things going for you? He says, when my 3rd year is up, I'll go back never to return. I thought, well, he's volunteered his life. He took his course in education, how to be a teacher under this peace movement. But when he began to go into detail and explain about the culture that you're dealing with when you go there, he says, when you mention time over here, it means nothing. He says, you go into a village to set up a school, to try to teach the people the principles of how to better themselves. Time means nothing. You say the school will start at 8 o'clock. 8:30 they might be there. And again he said it might be 9 o'clock. And if you begin to get on to them about their time factor, you won't see them no more. They will not tolerate this thing to be told that you need to be here on time. Those that do come want to learn. You can show them out in their little villages how to plant a garden, to dig the soil up, how to prepare it, how to plant the beans. What a little row of beans, how many meals it will bring to them. He said you've got to stay on them to make them keep cultivating them, keep the little grass and the weeds out. Otherwise, they think once you planted them, that's all you have to do. That they're just going to grow abundance of beans and that they'll pick themselves. You go there, well, why have... They got all kinds of expressions they show to yourself by physical actions. You tell them, but you're supposed to get out there and pick those beans. Well, that's a horse of another color. He says, when you show them that every day they could go out there and pick themselves a mess of beans. At the same time, pick the excess and preserve it. You show them how to preserve it. To them, they care less how to preserve the next meal. Their philosophy of life is, if you have something to eat today, let tomorrow take care of itself. Well, that might sound good to you. But if America had come together and lived that kind of a culture life, America would have starved to death a long time ago. Early America had practically around every little log cabin. It didn't matter whether it was in Michigan or Florida, New York or Texas. It wouldn't be long, there would be a little garden spot. And they would learn how to plant a few things that would exist in there. That was early America. And I think I'm going to stop on that point right there. We might pick it up later. America was not built on welfare. America was built on the foundation of some principles that Christianity brought to it. So with that, bear with me now. Your sodomite community will try to say, where does the Bible say it's wrong? They say those things as a challenge. Well, I can think of so many places in the Bible that it speaks directly against it or indirectly. It's pitiful. Such as Matthew 24 or Luke 17. Did not Jesus say, and as it was in the days of Lot? Again he said the same things. They were married, given in marriage. They bought, they sold, they built. Well, what's that got to do with the gay community? To not understand what Jesus is trying to say is this. When you begin to see these signs, like the sodomites moving in, wanting predominance in attention, support, recognition, to be able to affect society, it don't mean that everybody in society is going to fall in that same life cycle. But as usual, it isn't long till the world in general just gives in to the pressure of this thing and floats right along with it. And all of that perverted lifestyle, after a while, it begins to become a normalcy. But history has proved, wherever that begins to become and called a normalcy, it's a fact. That begins the beginning of the end of that society. That's what brought an end to the society before the flood. That's what brought an end to the existence of two cities. Let's read about it. Now we know what Jesus said in Matthew 24. They were married, given in marriage, built houses. They ate, they drank, they celebrated, they had a good time. All those social things. This is the day people in America like to have their social material things. Oh, don't take that away from us. To them, it's a material security. Don't tell me we have to give that up too. But when we go back to Genesis, we're in the 19th chapter of Genesis. Here's the real background. And there came two angels to Sodom at even. And we could almost say, brothers and sisters, the sun's just getting ready to set in this western hemisphere of this modern society of America. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. He was well known. He was looked up to as a man. He was a counselor. He'd been there quite a long while. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. He had enough of spirituality about him to know these was not just two ordinary men. He bowed himself with his face toward the ground, and he said, "Behold now, my lords." At least he knew the difference between that wild bunch and these characters. There had to be something physically that stood out. I pray you, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, "Nay, but we will abide in the street all night." And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So everything was going well in Lot's house. But before they laid down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, or I'm going to say the men of L.A., Las Vegas, Louisville, Kentucky, Atlantic City, New Jersey, come past the house round about, both old and young. All the people from every quarter. What a display. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. What a display of ungodliness. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren. That sounds like a modern churchgoer, don't it? Since they press their way into the Presbyterian circles, pressing their way into the Methodist circles, they can't help but call them brethren. If they don't, they might have their doors closed. Do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do you to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. He was ready to give away 2 daughters, hoping to appease this low-down, ornery crowd. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs to be a judge. Somehow they looked them over as they came to the gate. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness. Somewhere, this great political thing that's going on to try to give in America such recognition to this lifestyle, you watch, it's going to lead to some kind of a disaster. And God will be behind the whole effects, both small and great, so that they weary themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides sons-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters? And whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. The angels is begging Lot, if you've got any family, sons, daughters, sons-in-laws, and so forth, go get them. Let's get them lined out and get them out of here. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them has waxed great before the face of the Lord. And I have to believe, brothers and sisters, after this many years of grace and mercy that God has watched over this nation, and since the era of World War II, when the nation was used by God to liberate the world from the tyranny of 2 sources of evil. That's when the American man became a known man of liberation. But he can't hold that image forever, because his own society is given in to the devil and all the perversions of it. But I have to feel that there's something walking through America, taking its last look. And God only knows what that is, brothers and sisters. But now then, I use that tonight, because when we take the story from there on, the next day, Lot had went to all of his daughters' sons-in-laws, and they acted like he come just mocking them. Now the point is this: not everybody has to be agreeable with the Sodomites. But for somehow or other, brothers and sisters, after a while it gets to the place, it don't hurt them. It's no longer an evil. It's just another part of a modern day of progress, and we have to accept it in its normalcy. That's at least the way they felt about it. And the average person, brothers and sisters, was just settled in that. That's why Jesus said they married, they were given in marriage, they drank, and so on and so forth. They was more interested just in the natural success and let each day take care of itself. But God wasn't looking at that, because it goes to show when this thing is over, outside of Lot and 2 daughters, that's the only human beings that escaped these 2 cities. Ain't that a shame? When there was a number of them cities, they didn't indulge in that. But it goes to show their attitude and their heart. They weren't going to get shook up. Even Lot's daughters and sons-in-laws, they weren't going to get shook up. Yes, Lot left the next morning with his wife. But for some reason or other, she had a lot of social clubs and things that she belonged to. It's just like America's church-going people today. The social clubs and the things they have in, oh, it's a part of my life. I just live for this. All of these Methodist clubs, the youth clubs, and this club and that club and such and such. That's what rules them today. So when we read the finishing up, brothers and sisters, was it how many people that actually was the eating that brought the destruction? No. It was this lifestyle. That was the #1 target that God was after. But everything else perished with it, and so will it in America. So tonight, brothers and sisters, I want to read to you some facts. These are statistics. This examination and test is taken from Minnesota. To date, the Bagley and Tremblay 1997 study remains as the only study to have used a random sampling technique. Stratified random sampling producing both a sample of homosexuality-oriented males and of their heterosexual counterparts, meaning the straight normal people, for comparisons of purposes. This study replicated the Bell and Weinberg of 1978 results, and is also the best and most recent indicator available of the self-harm at risk status. That means they've studied the lifestyle of the homosexual community, the harm, the suicide, the poisoning, the other disasters that brings death. So as we go on, compared to heterosexual males, homosexually oriented males, 12.7% of a sample accounted for 26% of males in this self-harm, meaning somewhere as they get started into this perverted lifestyle, they'll wind up doing themselves some kind of harm to bring their life to an end. It includes suicide attempts. And then as they get older, it falls into a 62.5% of suicide attempters. They were 3 times more at risk for reporting self-harm and almost 14 times more at risk for reporting having attempted suicide. It all adds up to this. Once they start this lifestyle, they might start it with a very boastful, arrogant, head, chest tuck out, I'll have my way. But they don't live too long until weary, frustration, self-condemnation begins to center in. Why wouldn't God allow it to be that way? They have forsook Him. They don't need God. But before they go too long, they begin to realize how helpless they are. Given that homosexually oriented male youth have been reported to be at greater risk of the more serious forms of self-harm, and that such results are replicated, they are therefore likely to be even more at risk for completed suicides. Given the Begley and Tremblay 1997 results and erring on the conservative side, they closed their report by saying, a big percentage may not be successful in committing suicide, but there is such a thing. They will try it again. Here is another study. These perverted sexual behaviors had greater problems, such as more regret over their homosexuality, and were more likely to be less exclusively homosexual and more covert than other respondents, or we will say practitioners of it. Dysfunctionals also had more regrets over their homosexuality, but were highly sexually active and not coupled. Both groups more depressed, tense, paranoid, depressed, lonely, and less self-acceptance. Who wants to live a life like that? The lifetime suicide attempt rate for white homosexual males was 18% of all of those in that camp, compared to 21% of the blacks in the same camp. Their respective suicide, re-attempting it again, fell into 38% and 33% black. 43% of white homosexual male suicide attempters reported that their first attempt was relationship related, meaning their mate, meaning that those that occurred after somewhat becoming part of the gay community. This is taken from a breakdown, a public health program by Rafal Kazman shows the average age of homosexuals who die with AIDS is 39. How many in here, as a young man, how many wants to die at 39? I'm sure anybody in his right sense. If you don't have good health, brothers and sisters, from the time you're growing up, as you go into the 30s, normal condition is that you fell heir to some kind of an ailment that was not brought on by perversion. But if you, as a normal person would be, if you're born with normally good health, why would you want to accept a lifestyle that's going to begin to jeopardize that health? You're going to be like a lot of people. You're going to stand before all the vitamin counters, herbal drugs, do this and do that, because it comes natural. You want to build this old man to his peak of energy and vitality. But to think, the average homosexual man dies within first 39 years of his age. The average age of homosexuals who die of other causes is 41. 2 years longer. The study accomplished over 5 years shows that homosexual conduct reduces life expectancy by 30 years. In a review of thousands of cases, only 1% of homosexuals live to be 65. Perhaps Congress should mandate a health warning label. And I have to say, why don't they? Now that lets me pick up the tobacco business. What a hoax. Clinton got in on that. And he's out to break the tobacco industry. Well, Christian brothers and sisters, I don't go along with that tobacco use, do you? And I want the president and the Congress and the Senate to know. No, I'm a Christian. Something tells me from the Bible that tobacco harms your body. And my Bible tells me He that defiles his body, him shall God destroy. Well, it's common sense that the tobacco does and has harmed men's lungs. My, it's terrible to hear a man say he is in his 70s, and he's got emphysema. He can hardly breathe, but he smoked all of his life. When the medical professions begin to see all of these physical broken down health problems that they relate to tobacco, and they begin to ring the bell, the president gets on that. Look at here. You're going to stop this. You are breaking into our Medicaid and Medicare treasury. We cannot pay this bill because you're bringing on this health breakdown partly by your own will. Now, if that is a fact that way, then here's another young bunch of characters over here. They've accepted this sodomite lifestyle. Oh, that's all right. But they get AIDS by the hundreds. Their health is breaking down. They lose weight. They lose the color. They have got to go to the hospitals. For a while, they couldn't get in. No. You have induced this sickness. Your lifestyle has brought this on. But all of a sudden, they reversed the whole philosophy. They brought the AIDS patient in, give him all he needs. But the tobacco character, take him out, let him die. And the government went after the tobacco industry hook, line, and sinker. That's why I say the day of common sense is gone from America. They will say you need a good education. How, to be stupid? To read circumstances like that? What are you trying to do? Kidding me? I believe God give us all some sense if we learn how to use it right. The report indicated 5 things contribute to early death for homosexuals. Suicide is become an epidemic. Their suicide rate is 60 times as high as the general population. Think of that. Labeling their lifestyle as gay may prefer death rather than to continue living in it. Homosexuals say suicide is the result, listen to this, of religious and social pressures. What a joke. I wasn't pressured in accepting Jesus Christ. And I want them to know. And saints, let's be practical and sensible. Everything that's on the other side of the fence is of the devil. Now define that. Did not the Apostle Paul say, no whoremonger, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind? Telling about they leave the natural use of the woman, man to man, woman to woman. The extortioners. He's a crook, a murderer, a drunkard. They all belong to the same category. Do I hate them? No. Because it was 3 drunks that put my scar on my head. Why should I hate a homosexual and not hate a drunk? Why should we prefer one wrong over another wrong? Because it all comes from the same source. We've got to have sense enough, brothers and sisters, to know how to reply to some of this junk. It's truly a sign of the last days. And when I think many times that in these last days, police departments have been forced to open up and accept gays on the police force. Why should we as Christians become so loud-mouthed? As long as America's outside lifestyle was affected by the Christian image, we didn't have that and didn't have to worry about it. If you understand what I mean. But when America as a whole began to absolutely shut the image of the true Christian out of their eyesight, and then from their realm they want to justify one evil over another, such as they're doing. God ain't going to let you do that and get by with it. Now let us look at it in this way and be sensible. You live in a big city. You live high up in an apartment complex, 18 floors up. A fire breaks out. The fire department comes, and all the engines are screaming and are crying, and the bells are ringing. Up goes ladders. Men trying to find the ways to get into this floor. Are you going to be foolish enough to stand there in the hallway? Are you a homosexual? Amen. Are you a pervert? If you are, I ain't going to let you carry me down there. Well, go and die in the fire then. How many will listen to what I'm saying? Amen. Three guys just walk into a bank with masks on. They're holding people hostage. But a man has pressed a button. The bells goes off at the police station. 2 cartloads of policemen come. And some police departments do have homosexuals. I've read in the paper. New York City for one of them. Are you going to be as foolish enough to stand in the teller window and hear your hands is in the air and they're just shaking like a leaf? And the police are on the outside just to wait for an opportunity to make a move. And you holler out with that great big ignorant, are you a homo? Are you a homo? I'm illustrating it. Can't there come a time when Christians have got sense enough to know when to keep their mouths shut? How many listen to what I'm saying? Amen. Keep in mind, it's one thing to disagree. But when you see the world in general has accepted certain things and are using it to justify their own wrongdoings, all that you're ever going to say ain't going to get you a dime worth of anything. Because I have to say, brothers and sisters, it's all an indication the time has come when God's going to shut the door. He's got something else somewhere in mind. How many times I've watched these programs that shows people where they get caught in a flood. Here they're washed out in a stream of fast-flowing water. They're holding on to a tree limb. And somebody on the bridge curb somewhere is screaming and oh my God, why don't somebody do something? Along comes some burly, bearded character. He just had a beer in town, been smoking a cigar. He sees the plight of that poor soul. He cries out, anybody got a rope? Somebody comes with a rope. He wraps that around himself. He ties it to a reel, and in the water he goes. Yes, a plain old unbeliever. But he risks his life against all the flowing dangers to maybe rescue that little child. And when he's brought that poor soul safely into the care of its loved ones, then people are ready to cry and say, it had to be God. It had to be God. A lot of this goes to show, brothers and sisters, a lot of Christian people don't have sense enough to know how to respect the mercy of God when we're still living in a world that in percentage-wise they're unbelievers. But when the chips are down, it's mighty good for one of them to risk his life. I hope you don't think I'm reading this the wrong way, brothers and sisters. I'm not. Because a lot of times Christians have grown up with the philosophy, I'm a Christian. God ain't going to let nothing happen to me. Well, I just pray, brothers and sisters, that we've all got sense enough to know how to live each day. But when we get to the place we think we're too good for anything, a bad thing, we might be walking a tightrope, if you understand what I mean. So, brothers and sisters, I'm not standing here trying to tell you, let's tell the gays how no good they are. Because, brothers and sisters, then you just turn around and have to look the drunk in the face. You're no good either. But then when I look at the politicians, how in the name of common sense can you take one man, one human being from one lifestyle and justify and lift him to the high heavens and make everybody else feel like they're fools? But yet you turn right around and take another person from the same side of the fence. Now my Bible tells me this, that no whoremonger, nor adulterer, nor fornicator shall enter the kingdom of God. Ain't that right? Here now the government justifies this poor sodomite's condition, wants to protect him, give him free medical attention. Go down the street. There's the red light district. Here's a girl. She's not a pervert, but she's using her body to make a living. How many knows what I'm talking about? Take long as a policeman comes and snaps handcuffs on her and takes her off to jail. For what purpose? Oh, she's a harlot. Well, ain't that something? She's using her body to make a living. And this other character over here, he has just thrown his life and body away so he can get all the care from the state. And I have to say, and the state is taking your tax dollars to take care of him, but they publicize this other thing when it all comes from the same source. There's a spirit comes out of hell that gets on all of it. And the devil is the author behind every bit of it. And I have to say, brothers and sisters, there's only one reason that politicians can use this today. They reached a point in time they want to unchristianize the American nation. To do so, they're going to take one of the most evilest, the most vilest images that humanity can be drugged to and use that as an issue to begin this trend of unchristianize the American society. Because, brothers and sisters, the sodomite coming into the picture at the end of the journey is only a sign the end is just ahead. All these other evils have been here all the time. You've had to live with them. You've had to work with them. You have to run the risk, brothers and sisters, every time you travel the highways, being run into by a drunk. There was 3 drunks that did this to me. But you've not heard me talk about the drunks all the time. I've not pushed them down. When he's not drunk, he's at the same work spot you are. And sometimes he's a good worker. Does that mean you're going to justify his lifestyle? No. Because, Mr. President, why don't you come out and tell the truth? What's the statistics in your category that across the nation, you could get it from the FBI if you will, the percentage of drunks that's been reported and how that man has spent his livelihood in the saloons, in the beer joints. He starved his wife, his family. He's denied them the material things to build a security for them. It all went down the drain every time he swallows a bottle of whiskey or a beer. Why don't you go after the alcohol industry as you've done the tobacco? Because just as the tobacco goes after the lungs, alcohol goes after the kidney and the liver. And you're paying out just as much through Medicare to those kidney patients and such. Come on, tell the truth. But you won't let the statistics out. Because on top of that, you've used these things as a voting block. That's a fact. When it came to the fact, brothers and sisters, that politicians begin to side in with the sodomites, they could see that there was an influential part of society becoming like this. And there's another element of society not like that, but they are motivated out of sympathy. That's human carnality. So the politicians are seeing the chance to get a vote. Otherwise, brothers and sisters, there's other times they wouldn't pay 2 cents. I don't think, brothers and sisters, that every politician necessarily condones it, but he's not stood against it. And therefore, they have caused bills to be passed where, brothers and sisters, there is not an American man or woman that can say anything now from the, we will say, the social domestic realm against this lifestyle. You're forced to live by it. You're forced to work by it. You're forced even to live in an apartment complex with them there. And I have to say it's pathetic. And so, brothers and sisters, don't think I'm trying to be foolish or anything like that. But I'm a child of God. I'm not going to go driving down the highway looking for every homosexual I can run into, nor run off of the road. And I don't think he's coming down the road necessarily looking for me to run into. But I do believe this, brothers and sisters, that it's a sign of America. She's come to the end of the world. She has slid further in the past 35 years than any other nation in this world put together. And I believe with all my heart, America is not going to escape the judgment of God. I'm convinced we're going to see it with our own eyes. In a not too distant future, when we do see it, brothers and sisters, it's going to pay us to be godly, wise, and learn what the grace of God has done for us. I don't have to run up and down the streets and say it's wrong for that place to hire a homosexual. To me, if it had never started in the first place, it might not have grew like it has. But since they didn't want the Christian's voice, nor his vote, it shows, brothers and sisters, the time had came. All these spirits out of hell have to show themselves. And brother, it's right here in front of us. Look what Jerry Falwell has done. He's got a radio program. He's spoken out. He's a big preacher. Yes, sir. He's known from coast to coast. He's got a Bible school. He holds on to his Trinitarian dogma. For people to hear him, you think he's a wise man. He spoke so loud against the homosexual pattern of life. And all of a sudden, he had to publicly announce, come on, let's get together. I apologize. I've used some hard words. And shows him having to hug them and apologize. I'd have to say, homosexual, I'm not going to run up and down the street pointing the finger at you. I've got more to do than that. But I have to say, Mr. Homosexual, my Bible is against your lifestyle. I didn't write the Bible. God wrote it. And if you think it ain't true, stick around with me. The hour will be when the very thing that God says is going to be, you're going to see it. And then don't ask me what went wrong. Your own lifestyle led you astray. Because the same thing's going to happen to you that happened to that bunch of stuff down there in Sodom and Gomorrah. The same thing's coming your way that happened just before the flood that brought the flood. Now you can crow about it, you condemn it, and spit in God's face. But one of these days he's going to take you and break you into little crumbles. Because after all, you was made out of clay. And he can say, there's a lot more where I got you. And I can make a whole lot more that won't go your route. So brothers and sisters, I don't know what the next 5 years might hold for America or for us. I pray to the good Lord that a bunch of them don't come in here some night and just act up. But if such a thing should happen, don't open your mouth, but do this. When I give the sign, everybody rise. We'll dismiss ourselves. We'll walk out the door and lock the door. Leave them here to rant and rave. Because we will not be their audience. How many understand what I mean? Amen. Don't give them an opportunity to even get your attention. You will gain more by showing unconcern. Because it can be a game with them, but they can't go the rest of the next 100 years doing that night after night, night after night. They'll get tired of that. Because when they see that they can't frustrate you nor aggravate you, the only time that I say call the police, if they come in here with a knife or something or other, they want to start harming physically. Then I have to say, boys, grab anything you can. And women, get under the seats. Because if they can be that carnal, I can too. I hate to think that, brothers and sisters. We didn't ask for problems. We are left in a world that we didn't ask for anything. I'm thankful to God for his grace and goodness. So if they don't like our lifestyle, they don't need to come around and try to pester it. Now, in the homosexual community, drugs ranks 3 times higher than in the general population. This combined with the light rate of alcohol abuse leads to an increase of heart, lung, liver failure, as well as increased incidence of accidental deaths, such as automobile wrecks. Sometimes you wonder what causes a car to come right down the highway, and you're on the other side minding your own business. All of a sudden, that car just comes right across the median and hits you head on. You would almost say it looked like it was purposely done. When little do you realize it might have been a homo in there, or an alcoholic, or somebody, we will say, whose mentality has already been affected and ruined. And the devil can use that instrument anytime he wants to. Because he's out to kill that person, but he can use that person, brothers and sisters, to bring a lot of harm and danger to someone else. Highway fatalities claims the lives of homosexuals at a rate 40 times higher than the normal lifestyle people. Think of that. Diseases takes its next toll. Homosexuals are 14 times more likely to have that old venereal disease, syphilis. 23 times more likely to contact some venereal disease. Thousands of times more likely to contract contract AIDS. Lesbians are twice as likely to suffer from different genital failures. And murder itself claims the lives. The ratio of homosexual men murdered was found to be 50 times that of the general population. Now, how many wants to join that camp? I don't. I don't have to read a danger sign. I don't have to read a safety sign. I've got it marked down here. That's all you could hear for the past 50 years. Safety, safety, safety in the workplace. All kinds of appliances for the home. Safety, safety, safety. And while we was out west, turned the radio on, caught CNN. Forget what state this occurred. Listen carefully how I'm saying this. Mommy, daddy. A man and his wife is suing Toys R Us. A little 7-year-old boy choked to death with a plastic 2-inch in diameter ball. Well, I think that's terrible, Brother Jackson. I do too. Daddy, where was you at? Don't you think you should have been telling that boy a little something? Imagine a 7-year-old kid. And there that daddy and mother wants to sue Toys R Us. I forget how many millions of dollars. America has become a wild camp of people wanting to get rich overnight. No wonder we have become, in some respects, a stupid society. We ignore all safety factors that we should have horse sense enough to know to not do, and want to lay the blame on somebody else. My dad would have saw me trying to get a 2-inch plastic ball in my mouth. He'd have knocked me on the head. There would still been a knot there. And I have to say, every little old towhead needs one. Not a 2-inch plastic ball in his mouth rolled up inside of his jaw. That's stupidity and ignorance. And it's a shame we've got a generation of daddies and mommies that don't know too much more to do anything any better. When I went to school, they even taught little simple things like that, but they don't today. We got to climb higher in math. Some new thing they go way to reach math. But we ain't even got sense enough to know how to get up and go to work, come home safely. Danger lurks out there, brothers and sisters, in the pathway of life, because this world is not my home. And neither is it my resting place. And if heaven's not my home, Lord, what am I going to do? Danger lurks the pathway of life from the time you come in here crying. And it's going to be stalking you until you leave here. And I believe, brothers and sisters, there's such a thing, common, simple horse sense. Don't misread me, brothers and sisters. But if we're going to live a Christian life, it's got to be more than a crow. It's got to be more than, I'm a Christian. Because after Jerry Falwell had to come off of his high horse and do what he did, I have to say, he'll go down, 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 down. He shouldn't have been tackling something other as though he was going to convert the world. So, brothers and sisters, my statistics are not over. There's a lot of it here. But I will save the last one to now. Listen to this. A Republican gubernatorial candidate, Ellen Crosswell, claims this week that being homosexual takes 35 years off your life. Comes from a controversial anti-gay research. Crosswell's comments in a Wednesday debate with Democrat Gary Locke were based on a 1994 study co-authored by Dr. Paul Cameron, a prominent national critic of homosexuals and gay rights whose work has been criticized as inaccurate. Well, they always got to come along like that. Cameron, director of the Washington, D.C.-based Family Research Institute, studied obituaries in 18 gay publications. For his conclusions, it was this, that gays and lesbians have sharply reduced their lifespans. Cameron was ousted from the American Psychological Association, and a federal judge in Texas said he distorted research when he appeared as an expert witness in a case. Cameron could not be reached yesterday, but has told reporters he was kicked out of the Psychological Association because he tried to resign when he disagreed with the organization's position on gay rights. Crosswell cited Cameron's statistics Wednesday, although she did not attribute them to him, to bolster her position of opposing civil rights protections for gays and lesbians and to show that homosexuality is not a safe and healthy lifestyle. The specific numbers on gay mortality are not important to Crosswell, her spokesman, Kathy Mears, said yesterday. I think she stands behind saying it is a high-risk lifestyle. Lockheed supports passing a state law to protect gays and lesbians from housing and employment discrimination. As a state lawmaker, he sponsored unsuccessful gay rights legislation. Cameron's work was criticized by county health officials. And here's what one of them said. He has a very strong moral agenda, and I really distrust his work, said Larry Keel, AIDS information specialist with the Seattle-King County Health Department. There is no doubt that the AIDS epidemic has taken a large toll among gay men, but there is no data, it says, to determine the life expectancy of gays and lesbians to be accurate, they say, because we don't have the statistics on how many homosexuals there are, and that's why they want to doubt this other. But I have to say, if they go to the morgue and get the obituary statistics, the cause of death, to me, brothers and sisters, a few of them should tell them which it did. Who wants to die at 35? Or who wants to die at 41? So, brothers and sisters, we could both go on, I suppose, with a lot of other things, but we'll quit for tonight. But I pray, let's pray for the hour we live in. Lord, help us to know how to conduct ourselves, to speak when we should speak, and keep quiet when we should keep quiet, because we're not going to convert the world out of this. It's going to take the hand of God. And I believe, brothers and sisters, God's got a remedy. And I wouldn't want to be on the other side of the fence when God does send the remedy. Heavenly Father, tonight, you see the hour we live in. And Lord, I pray, we realize how frail, and Lord, many times we feel so unable to know what to say or how to say it. When it looks like that everything in the world at large, Lord, has become harnessed by the devil to try to shut up and still the mouth and the voice of every child of God. Yet we have the hope in Daniel that there is going to be a wise people in the last days. That is the only people that's going to be wise. They've got to be a people that know you. And they've got to be a people, Lord, that's willing to let you direct them, teach them, and show them what, where, and how. Lord, if our life is to shine in a darkened hour of time, God, teach us what we should know. Help us to know how to look at all these issues, Lord, because we realize, Lord, all we are or ever will be is by your grace. In that precious name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.